everybody and welcome along to a brand new video, and today I'm taking a look back at one of the, I don't know if you want to say lesser known Doctor Who related things or sort of visual things, but it's not one that exactly gets talked about very often, so I thought, you know, I've got to this sort of stage in my marathon when this sort of thing was being released, so why not? Let's take a look back at it. Today we're reviewing the first Peter Cushing Doctor Who movie from the 1960s. It's Doctor Who and the Daleks. So yes, this was the first of two Dalek movies, Doctor Who movies that made it to the big screen, featuring the Daleks, being remakes of two Doctor Who's Dalek stories from the William Hartnell era. This one is a remake of The Daleks, and then the second one, Dalek Invasion Earth 2150 AD, is a remake of The Dalek Invasion of Earth, unsurprisingly. And I'll be reviewing that next week, so I won't be talking really anything about that one this week, but do check that out when it comes around this time next week. So yes, this was Doctor Who's first foray to the big screen. There'd never been any Doctor Who in cinemas on a big screen before, and I don't think there's really been much since, apart from the odd screening of an episode. But there's never really been anything designed to be on the big screen like this was back in the 1960s, and I'm sure for fans, particularly for younger fans, this must have been a hugely exciting moment, because obviously the Daleks had sort of swept the nation in their popularity. Everybody knew what a Dalek was, the kids were obsessed with the Daleks, and so it completely made sense to make a Dalek film. And so for these kids who have watched sort of Doctor Who on these tiny little black and white TVs, to go to a cinema and see Daleks in colour on a massive screen must have been the most exciting experience for a sort of 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10-year-old. It must have just been thrilling and really exciting, and I think you can certainly see how this would have worked quite well in cinemas at the time. Now, I'm not going to try and say this is one of the best pieces of film or television or whatever that I've ever seen before, because it really isn't. It ultimately is essentially a remake of The Daleks, just not as good. But the fact it's in colour, widescreen, cinematic, clearly a lot higher budget, does give it a little brownie points in that sense, and does add a lot of things to it that the black and white TV version just couldn't do, and is let down slightly in that sense. The original premise is a little bit different and a little bit weird in that the Doctor is just, or he's not called the Doctor, he is officially called Doctor Who, and we do see people saying, "Oh, hello Doctor Who, what can I do, Doctor Who?" It just sounds bizarre that people calling him Doctor Who, not just the Doctor. And he's also, I think, as far as I can tell, human. Just a sort of quite clever scientist who somehow built a time machine, seems to be how it was. Then we do also still have Susan, Ian and Barbara, but Susan and Barbara are the Doctor's granddaughters, not just Susan. And Susan is literally about a 10 or 8-year-old child as well in this, whereas at least in the TV show she looks 15, 16, optimistically. And Ian is the boyfriend of Barbara, essentially. So it's kind of different but the same. There's, yes, using the same sort of characters and character types, but also just slightly different family connections. As I say, the Doctor being human is, I think being a human is slightly weird as well. The TARDIS itself is really not a great idea. It's just a giant laboratory that's got loads of sciencey equipment that's magically a time machine. It doesn't feel... I mean, it's obviously because it's been created by some human scientist dude who's turned his lab into a time machine, essentially. But I don't think it works spectacularly. It's not an iconic or a memorable TARDIS sort of setting. And it is just interesting, it's also just called TARDIS. Let's get back to TARDIS, Doctor Who, rather than the TARDIS. It's just, let's go to TARDIS, which also sounds a little bit weird. It's just those slight things that you get so used to watching hundreds of episodes of Doctor Who that then they do it slightly different in the film and you're like, what? Well, this doesn't make any sense, what? And it's a little bit annoying. And it's not a problem, obviously, it's just a little bit different. In terms of Peter Cushing's sort of Doctor Who character, he's all right. He's hardly amazing. I mean, that's the way the script is written. It's the way the character's been chosen to be played. It's not meant to be the William Hartnell Doctor. It's meant to kind of look something similar in that old man grandfatherly figure, but he's more of a sort of nice, kind grandfather rather than the quite grumpy grandfather that we see, or at least grumpy old man that we see in the early William Hartnell era. There's very much not really any of that during this film. It's all a lot more sort of a very sort of a calm and loving and welcoming and helpful grandfather that they've got in this character of Doctor Who, that's there to sort of look after them, but also be the clever sciencey dude to try and solve everything as well. So it's kind of combining dynamics of sort of various Doctors, but into a sort of, yeah, not so dark and miserable William Hartnell Doctor. I think it's probably the closest you could describe it as. Then in terms of the Daleks, they are quite good. I quite like having lots of different colour schemes. It obviously works fantastically on the big screen, and the key thing being in colour, of course. The first time the Daleks had ever been seen in colour, so taking that opportunity by using lots of different coloured Daleks makes perfect sense, and I think works quite well in this story as well. The Daleks do feel a reasonable threat. There is a lot of rehashing of scenes from the Daleks, you'll follow ahead of us and follow directions. It's just like really slightly annoying when they say lines and just miss a word or two from a line that's so iconic in the Daleks. It's just like, oh, it just sounds wrong because you're so used to the way it's been said in the Daleks. It's just little tiny things like that aren't a problem. It's just sort of you notice it when you're such a big fan and have seen the Daleks before. And I think also what this story does quite well, it kind of cuts down the Daleks into what's actually worthwhile watching, because I think there's, as much as the Daleks is a pretty good story, it's a solid opening story for the Daleks. It is way too long. It does not need to be 7 parts. You could easily cut it down to 4 or 5. And so what was on TV, by a nigh on 3-hour story, is cut down to 1 hour and 20 minutes in Doctor Who and the Daleks. And I think that really helps it. Well, in some ways it really helps that it means it skips along at a much faster pace. We don't get lots of the pointless sort of going around in circles, spending an episode of them dying in the cells and stuff like that. Like, we get rid of all that boring stuff and really speed the process up. But I think what it does do is it feels a little bit to the detriment of the Thals and the Thals' character development. Because the Thals are obviously involved in this story again. They have fantastic costumes. I really like their big sort of purple, colourful capes that they've got. There's lots, again, just using those vibrant colours that they can really take advantage of in colour to be able to use, and I think that looks fantastic. But I feel like the Thals themselves don't really have that much time to sort of individually develop each of the different Thal characters. You've very much just got the leader dude, and that's about the only one really bothered sort of investing anything into it. And the two of them, when they go up the side of the cliff and go through the swamp and stuff, there's a little bit of sort of dialogue and something going on there, but that's about all we learn about it. Whereas it's been a while since I watched the Daleks, but from what I remember, there is a lot more sort of character development involved in developing the relationships between the different Thal characters and just understanding these different sort of character types within the Thal people that we get to see a lot more of in the Daleks. And that's just natural. By having more time to be able to explore characters, you're obviously going to get more of that in a longer version. So I don't think it's massively to the detriment. It's just something that I noticed during this story. Maybe the only place where the speed of the film kind of lets it down is in the very sort of final few scenes, which do feel like they absolutely rip through. And suddenly we've gone through from the Daleks are about to blow up the whole of Skaro and the Thals and everything to the Daleks are dead. That's it. It's all done. It took about 2 minutes of them running in, throwing them around, and that was it. It wasn't the most... As much as there was lots of explosions and it was exciting in that sense, there wasn't much build-up. It kind of just happened, and then it was over, and then that was the end of the film. It was pretty sort of rapid, like bish bash bosh, and it's over. So that I think that was slightly... I don't want to say let it down, but it just sort of slightly detracted from it towards the end of the story. I think knowing the story to the Daleks so well, it does in some ways take away from this film, because you kind of already know what's going to happen, because they are just remaking a story you've already seen. So it's sort of, I think, takes away some of the excitement and enjoyment in that sense. And I don't think this is one of the greatest pieces of Doctor Who media that's ever been made, but I also don't agree with some people who think it is atrocious and awful, and why would you ever want to watch that? It's a solid watch. It's a solid hour and 20 minutes. It doesn't sort of feel like it drags massively. It's got some entertainment in there. It's nice to see the Daleks in colour in Skaro in the city. The city design looks fantastic. It's really spectacular. And even like the forest as well, the colours and the lighting they've done on that, these creepy sort of greens and blues, shadowy greens and blues look fantastic. They've really worked hard on the sort of lighting of it and the different colours they can use with a colour picture for the first time. I think it just really all works together very well to sort of give an effective vibe and just something very interesting and different, and really adding to what you see in the Daleks on TV by just adding that extra colour into there and the extra budget to it. It just makes a big difference, I think. So that definitely all works into its favour, into what is a solid, if unspectacular, film. But yes, that's pretty much all there is to say on this film, that it's okay, it's pretty good. I don't think that the main characters are particularly great, but I think it's almost the visuals. The music's quite good as well. I do quite enjoy the music. There's a few good sort of cues in there, here and there and everywhere. And yeah, it's just generally solid. But do let me know down in the comments below, guys, what you think of this film. Do you think it's a match for the Daleks on TV? I personally would say the Daleks on TV is better, but this isn't like absolutely a million miles away from it, and it does have its positives in the colour and the budget and things like that. Definitely work in its favour. Maybe as a story and the characters, not so much. But do let me know down in the comments below what you guys think. But that's just about it from this video, guys. Remember that like button, subscribe if you're new here. I'll be back again next week to review Dalek Invasion Earth 2150 AD. Sounds a very cool title, doesn't it? I'll be back then. See you soon. Goodbye.